You're probably sitting at your desk, scrolling through a sea of CNC Reuters, wondering if any of them will actually live up to the hype without draining your wallet or your patience. I get that feeling. You've probably already read a handful of glossy spec sheets that promise industrial precision and mega-scale workspaces, but you still worry about buying the wrong machine and ending up with a piece of metal that can't even handle a simple 24. That hesitation is real, especially when the next step involves carving a prototype for a client or finally getting that custom guitar body off the drawing board. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's talk about the FoxAlien XE Ultra 8080 CNC router and why it might or might not be the right fit for you. First off, the biggest thing people notice about this machine is the sheer size of its work envelope, 33 by 33 inches, with a depth of nearly 5 inches. That's not a typo. It actually lets you lay out full-size plywood sheets or a stack of acrylic panels without having to constantly reposition the material. In real-world terms, if you're a woodworker who builds furniture, you can cut a tabletop in one go, then flip it over for the dovetail joints without fighting the edges of a cramped bed. The same goes for anyone who needs to mill a series of aluminum brackets. The extra depth gives you room for multiple passes without having to pull the piece out after each cut. Now, their industrial rigidity claim isn't just marketing fluff. The frame uses reinforced aluminum extrusions and thick steel plates at key stress points, which translates to less vibration when you're grinding at higher spindle speeds. I've seen a few makers talk about their Reuters shaking so much that the finished edge ends up with a wavy profile. With the XE Ultra, the vibrations stay low enough that a 6mm end mill can hold a tight tolerance on a carbon fiber panel, which is impressive for a benchtop unit. The motor system is where the machine starts to feel a bit more sophisticated than a hobbyist kit. FoxAlien equipped the XE Ultra with NEMA 23 closed-loop stepper motors that deliver 2.6 Nm of torque. In plain language, that means the motors can push harder against the material without stalling, and the closed-loop feedback constantly corrects any missed steps. For a user who's ever had a piece suddenly stop mid-cut because the motor lost sync, this is a huge peace-of-mind upgrade. The trade-off is that the motors are a little heavier and require a solid power supply, so you'll need a dedicated outlet and a stable 24V source, not a deal-breaker, but something to plan for in your workshop layout. One of the smartest design choices is the open spindle ecosystem. The router doesn't lock you into a proprietary spindle. Instead, it offers a standard mount that lets you swap in a 500W, 12,000 revolutions per minute spindle or a higher power 2 kW unit if you later decide to tackle harder materials like titanium or thick carbon fiber. In practice, that flexibility means you can start with a modest spindle for wood and acrylic, then upgrade without buying an entirely new machine. However, the downside is that the spindle isn't bundled, so you have to source it yourself and factor that cost into the total price. The control box is a 32-bit board that runs the motion firmware, and it talks to the stepper drivers via a clear, color-coded wiring harness. For someone who's comfortable with a bit of firmware tweaking, you'll appreciate the ability to fine-tune acceleration curves and microstepping. If you're new to CNC, the learning curve can feel steep at first because there's no single plug-and-play button. You'll spend a few evenings calibrating the limit switches and setting the home positions. Speaking of limits, the inductive limit switches are robust and less prone to false triggers than cheap mechanical ones, which reduces the chance of the carriage crashing into the frame during an unexpected power hiccup. So, who should actually consider putting the XE Ultra into their shop? If you're a small business owner who needs to produce signage, custom furniture components, or prototype enclosures on a regular basis, the large work area and reliable motor feedback will shave hours off your workflow. Likewise, hobbyists who have outgrown a 20-inch router and are ready to experiment with metal or carbon fiber will find the extra rigidity and upgrade-friendly spindle a solid investment. The machine also makes sense for educators who want a versatile platform that can demonstrate both woodworking and light metal machining without swapping out the whole unit. On the flip side, if you're just dipping your toe into CNC and only plan to cut 1mm acrylic stickers or simple keychains, the XE Ultra might be overkill. Its footprint demands a dedicated bench space, and the need to purchase a compatible spindle separately can push the initial cost beyond what a casual user would spend. Also, if you're looking for a silent, low-maintenance solution for a home office, The stepper motors and open spindle will generate noticeable noise and require periodic belt checks and lubrication, nothing a commercial-grade router would hide from you. Let's talk